Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 43.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Monica Mathews. She calls herself the Scholarship Mom, and she gives us a lot of great advice about scholarships. To go along with this interview, I've created a document as well. It's called Great Tips to Motivate Your Kids to Apply for Scholarships. So we've got 11 ideas in this document where we can help you get started on the scholarship process, and more importantly, help your student get started. I think that's one of the big challenges for many families. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the interview. Remember, show notes are always available at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege/43 for the 43rd episode. All right, let's jump into the interview with Monica Mathews. All right, today we're sitting down with Monica Mathews. She has the title of Scholarship Mom in some of the blogging that she does. Welcome, Monica.
Hi, Brad. Nice to be here.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in the whole scholarship process and kind of what's your story?
Okay, what's my story? Well, I actually kind of fell into this whole scholarship thing. I was just a regular mom, stay-at-home mom. I'm a former teacher that was staying home to raise my 3 boys. And my oldest son started looking at colleges between his junior and senior year that summer. And he decided he wanted to go to MIT in Boston. And so we started looking at how much MIT would cost. And all of a sudden, my husband and I, our eyes were open. It was like, oh my gosh, wasn't he just like in preschool last week? And all of a sudden he's a senior, and we had not put any money away for college for our son. Just got too caught up in just trying to stay afloat, middle income family. Anyways, so we're looking at the price of MIT, and I thought there's no way we can't afford that. But he's a good student, had a pretty good ACT score, and I thought, you know what, let's try to win scholarships. So he actually applied for a few early deadline scholarships and didn't win them. And I thought, what's wrong here? He's really smart. He should be winning these scholarships. We were also told by the school that colleges would call us. He's got a great ACT score or whatever. They're going to call you and offer you all this money. Well, that didn't happen. So long story short, I started researching what can I do to help him win scholarships. And I just put together this program and these steps to take, and he started winning scholarships. So he actually won enough scholarships to completely graduate from college debt-free. He's been out of college for a few years now and has no student loans. So that's kind of my story. And then we had people say, you need to write this down because we don't know what we're doing. You need to help other parents. So that's how kind of my whole story kind of wrapped up. And that's how I got into this scholarship section of the college industry.
Okay, so now that you've had that experience, I believe you did write it down. So you can tell us more about what you did kind of to help others now?
Right. What I wrote down what I did, and I called it How to Win College Scholarships, a guide for parents in 10 easy steps. And it's just how to walking through the scholarship process with your student as an active parent. And then about a year later, I was getting emails from students saying, hey, we want to win scholarships, but our parents, they're too busy or they're not going to help us. Can you help us too? And so I also wrote How to Win College Scholarships, a guide for students in 10 easy steps. And truthfully, the guides are very similar, but one is aimed at the parents who want to help their kids, and the other one for students who are pretty much doing it alone.
Okay. I guess from there, it seems like you've kind of blossomed out. You've got a blog and some other things going on. So can you give us a kind of a thumbnail sketch of what parents can or should be doing as far as big picture? If they're, what are the big things you learned that you share with parents?
Okay, well, my number one thing is that parents can work with their students and let their students know that I will be there to help you. I see so many students, especially on Twitter, tweeting out things like, all my mom wants me to do is work on scholarships, or I have to do the scholarship by tonight. And there's just not a lot of support there. But what I found with my son is I would find a scholarship and say, okay, son, this one is due in 3 weeks or whatever. and you need to write this essay. Here's the subject matter, and it needs to be this many words. And in the meantime, I would be getting the application ready. I could fill in his details because his name, address, phone number, that's not going to change. And it's okay if mom fills it out for him. He would write the essay. We would gather all the materials and we would submit it. So there were things that I could do that reassured him that he wasn't alone in the process. So what I'd like to do, and what I go through a lot in my scholarship guide, is teaching parents how to help their own students in the scholarship process.
Okay. So if I'm a parent and I'm thinking, well, I think I should pursue scholarships, I kind of need to maybe commit and help is what you're telling us.
You're going to get a lot more scholarships applied for. The kids will be more motivated if they know they have that help and support. So yes, it's so much more success. I've seen it over and over. The parents who go through the process with their kids rather than saying, we need this much money, you need to apply for 25 scholarships, do it. Because high school kids are so busy and so overwhelmed with everything else they need to do, their part-time jobs, their schooling, sports, after-school clubs. It's just, to me, it's a gift to give to our students, is helping them along the way.
Okay. And then, so you said you found some scholarships. Where do you recommend people look for scholarships?
Well, the number one thing is don't look in only one place. There are so many options out there for scholarships, especially right now with all the apps, the smartphone apps, the websites. I love the big scholarship listing books. I would check those out from the library and go through those. I would take them with me when my son was waiting for him to pick him up from, say, after school sport, or we would be watching TV and I'd be flipping through the book and I'd jot down notes. Those books are great. There's just lots of different places to look for scholarships. Other high school websites. I mean, don't just go to your own website. Go to other high school websites in your area and look at their list of scholarships. Because if you qualify because you live in the area, well, then probably going to qualify for them too. So local scholarships is a very good, definitely want to hone in on local scholarships. So that's just a few places to find scholarships. But the biggest mistake is only going to fastweb.com. Fastweb is a great website, but you can't just put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, with scholarships. You have to keep looking everywhere for scholarships.
Okay. So if we're in this process, can you give us an idea of how many scholarships we're looking for or applying to, and about how much, what's our time commitment?
Right. I don't really know a number. I would just say if you find one that you or your student qualifies for, apply for it. Don't turn down anything. If it looks like it has a really long essay, don't skip it, because you know what? That's the first inclination of a lot of students. Oh my gosh, it's got a giant essay, I'm going to skip it. Well, you know what? That means the competition is less. So spend a little time on it. As far as time, I would encourage my son. We started off with 15 minutes a day. Hey, just give me 15 minutes. Work on this essay for 15 minutes. That's all I ask. And for him, the smaller segments of time, he was able to commit to them more easily. And then what would happen was he'd get involved in filling out a scholarship application or working on an essay. And then by the time it's like, okay, 30 minutes have gone past, 35, he's still working on it. And maybe sometimes he only did the 15 minutes, but many other times he would do more time. He would put more time in because there wasn't a big pressure of, I need the next 3 hours for you to work on scholarships. We didn't do it that way. It was smaller amounts of time more frequently. So it's kind of hard to say how many hours, but you're just always working on them in the summer, during spring break. You can be working on scholarships all year long, all through high school.
Yeah. Okay. So that leads me to then, when do you do this, as far as if I have a high school freshman or a high school senior, or when do we get started?
Right. And I always say start where you are right now. So if your student is a senior already accepted into college and, oh my gosh, you need scholarship money, start applying now. There are scholarships out there with deadlines that have not yet passed, and summer deadlines. They can still apply for them. If your son or daughter is a high school freshman, start right now. Start looking, start getting your list together, start looking in the newspaper. The local newspaper is a great resource for finding scholarships, because right now, here in the spring, companies are publishing their scholarship winners. So what you can do is you look in like the names of the news section, and it'll say, this company gave this student this scholarship for this much money. Well, write that down and remember next year to apply for that scholarship. So there's just all different ways to find scholarships and to keep adding to your list. So just start right where you are. Even in middle school, I have an 8th grader, and he applied for a scholarship about 6 weeks ago. And it was really mostly a parent one where the parent could nominate. But I thought, why not? Let's try it. He's not too young because they're out there for him. And you're going to have less competition because most people wait until the spring of senior year, which is not technically too late, but you will have missed a lot of deadlines if you wait that long.
Right. What I tell my clients as we're doing the overall college planning, when they ask that question, it's like, well, Gerber offers scholarships.
Yes, they do.
Their scholarships are not targeted to this high school senior. They're targeted to the cute baby picture. So you can start almost at birth if you're willing to, get organized and start working on it. So.
Right. And, if you keep your eyes open, if you start getting used to looking and letting all your friends and family know that you're looking for scholarships, you're going to see a lot more just because you're more aware of the scholarships out there. My husband, he's so funny. He'll read the newspaper and he'll be like, hey, do you know about this scholarship? I just read about this. So he's, because he knows that we're always looking for him. We have other kids that are going to school. So we just always looking, always keep your eyes open.
Right. So let's get into a little more detail with your son that did win the scholarships then. So how many scholarships did he actually apply for? And
I've heard that question. I want to say like 37, but I'm not sure exactly how many. I mean, we had a list, but they were also the ones that he applied through the college and some of the local ones through the high school where it's like one application for so many different scholarships. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say numbers. I think total he won 17, but then, he kept winning scholarships all through college because a lot of them were the 1 year, $1,000 or $500 awards you get one time.
Right.
But then he was smart. He kept applying. I kept telling him, go to your professors, ask about scholarships. The first year he didn't quite have enough to cover 4 years, so he didn't have enough. So he kept applying. I'll never forget. He called me one day. I was on the cross country course with another one of my kids. Answered the phone. Mom, I'm so excited. I just won a $7,000 scholarship from Boeing. And this was his junior year of college. And I didn't even know that he'd applied for it. So he just learned. He saw his friends adding up, getting all the debt and how it was adding up. So he learned if he spent a little time and applied for scholarships, then maybe he wouldn't have to worry about any of that debt. And it really worked for him. And he's doing great right now with debt free.
Right. So he applied to somewhere in the 40 range, let's say. And then you said he won 17?
I think it was 17, but you know what? That was an original number. I've never really looked back. That was like, when he was after senior year of high school. But then he applied for more in college. He might have even applied for some that didn't win that I did not know about.
Okay, so what was the typical awards? I mean, you mentioned some were 500 and 1,000. What were some of the bigger ones? Or
some of the bigger ones, he did win a $10,000 renewable scholarship for 4 years. So that was $40,000 right there. But he had to keep his grades up. There's certain things you have to do to keep up with those scholarships, and that was something he applied separately through his college. That he won that one.
Right. Okay. And that was my next question. So who's sponsoring all these scholarships that you applied for and won?
These are just scholarships that we found. He won the Walmart scholarship. Walmart used to have a scholarship that you could apply for if you were not an employee there. They no longer have that scholarship. But for people listening, keep checking because a lot of these companies will take their scholarships away, then they'll reinstate them. They might change them a little bit. Walmart still has one for employees and students of employees. But at the time, he won a Walmart scholarship. Let me think of some other scholarships that he won. He won the AXA Community Foundation Scholarship. And AXA, I had never even heard of it. We had one in our area. I didn't know what it was, anything about it, but he won that one. And they actually came and presented it to him at his high school during awards night. That was neat. He won the Elks Scholarship. Now, the Elks Scholarship is an interesting one because we are not Elks Club members. But I did some reading into the fine print, another tip for students, and it didn't say you had to be a member. So I thought, well, why not? Let's apply. Now, the Elk Scholarship has lots of tiers where you can keep going and win a ton of scholarship money. My son actually didn't win the higher tiers. He won the local. He went on to the next level, but didn't win the next level, but was still awarded $1,000 from our local Elks Club. So those are some of the scholarships he won, and there were several more. I don't have them all in my head right now, but
yeah. But that just gives us an idea of the flavor of how far and wide you were applying and that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of consulting with families, and one of the things that that we run up against a lot is, well, I have the B student, and he doesn't have a lot on his resume per se. He plays video games for fun, and he's kind of that typical B student. Do you have any ideas or strategies for that type of family?
Right, I do. And, honestly, my second son wasn't a straight A student and still won scholarships. What we did was really focus on leadership. Everything that he did that showed any kind of leadership, he wrote his essays about, he talked about. We looked for volunteering scholarships because he did have a lot of volunteering hours. Part of the reason he did have a lot of volunteering hours is because we volunteer as a family. And I really encourage my kids to volunteer. One, because it's really good for them and good for others. And two, it's because it's good for college applications and scholarship applications. I helped him put together a project that he created on his own. So instantly he is the founder or the establisher, creator of a project. It went really well. We called the local newspaper to say, do you want to do a story on my son? He's doing this really great project. And they said, sure. They came out, took pictures, did the story, and it was on the front page of our local paper. Went and bought as many copies as we possibly could of that paper. And then when we could, we would insert a copy of the article in scholarship applications. So leadership is something that a lot of companies who offer scholarships are looking for. So students who are not straight A perfect students, and some scholarship organizations are not looking for the straight A perfect student. They look for kids who are doing for others, who are reflecting the values of their company. So just honing in on the strengths of the student instead of looking for what they don't have is a really good tip for applying for scholarships and using that information to help the kids win.
Okay, but that process started early. What if I have a senior and it's kind of too late for that? Is there good websites or other strategies as far as not really preparing the student, but kind of living with what we have?
I'm trying to think of a website. Well, there is a book. It's called the C Student's Guide to Winning Scholarships. I host a scholarship chat through hashtag Campus Chat the first Wednesday of the month. And Felicia Hatcher was my guest one week, for one chat. And that's her book and that's her angle. So there are resources out there for kids who are not straight A students or even, just average students. And, that's one of the things she really talks about is leadership, finding the strengths. I mean, some kids might not think they're leaders, but, did they volunteer for Vacation Bible School? Well, yes. Did they lead the kids in games? Well, yes. Well, you know what? That's leadership because you led a group. So sometimes it's just really finding out and finding angles to put in what you think the scholarship organizations are looking for in their applicants and showcasing those strengths on your applications.
Yeah. Okay. So then if we're going to pursue the scholarships, one of the things that I recommend families do is they kind of build get the word out, as you mentioned, and, share with their aunts and uncles and friends and family that, hey, we're looking for scholarships that might be appropriate, and grandma and grandpa, and they'll keep their eyes open when they're reading their local newspapers and that kind of stuff as well. But then how do you work with the school? I mean, a lot of scholarships are going to ask for letters of recommendation or other transcripts or other things where now the school is part of the process.
Right. Well, I definitely recommend that students and parents get to know the guidance counselors there at the school. Now those counselors have a lot of students. And so they're not going to call you up or call your student down to the office and say, hey, here's a scholarship. You should apply for this. Students need to get used to stopping in at least once a week, especially when they're seniors, because there will be the majority of the scholarships will be for high school seniors. Let the counselors know, I'm really hitting this hard. My mom and I, or my dad and I, my parents, we're really looking for scholarship money. I want to go to college. Do you have any scholarships that I can apply for? Keep checking the file cabinets or the wall, bulletin boards, wherever, school website, wherever your school lists scholarships, and get to know your counselor. So that way, when you need a letter of recommendation, and some need to come from the counselors, it says right on there in the guidelines, it needs to come from the high school guidance counselor. They know your passion. They've seen how hard you're working. And also another great way to get letters of recommendation is to have what I call a scholarship resume. It's also called an activity resume. It's sort of like a job resume, but it lists the courses the student has taken, if they're in any honors, AP classes, those kinds of things, what they've been doing as far as a job, volunteering, their strengths. And you can hand that to your letter of recommendation writer, and you can say, hey, you know what, I'm applying for the Ronald McDonald Scholarship, and I volunteered in the hospital for this many hours. Can you write me a letter of recommendation? And maybe you can talk about those hours that I've volunteered or give him something specific to write about, you're going to get a much higher quality letter of recommendation. You know what? Your letter writers are going to love that you are giving them ideas of what to write about, because it makes the letter way more detailed and personal. So helping your letter writer write a better letter is what the advice I give to parents and students, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes great sense. Yes. So again, build your team and get everyone kind of rowing in the same direction, I think is important for most families, not just in scholarships, but in the whole process. I guess another thing that we run into a lot is I don't think my student's going to work that hard or is willing to put in that kind of time, or even if they maybe have the grades or maybe they don't. But how do you keep the students motivated in the process?
What I like to do is encourage parents and students to sit down and talk about the true cost of college. Say, look, this is the college you want to go to. This is how much it costs. This is how much money we can contribute realistically to your college tuition payments. And this is the money we don't have. So we just keep that goal in front of them at all times to show them you need to put in the work. The scholarship money is out there. And if we don't even try to apply, then, the local community college is not a bad school. And maybe that's what we need to do for 2 years to save a lot of money. So really getting the numbers out in front of the kids and having that open and honest talk about finances is really important and really motivating. I mean, there's also other things you could do. I know for my middle son, I told him, I will pay your iPhone cell phone bill for an entire year. But every time I ask you to write a scholarship essay, I don't want any grumbling. Please just do it. So that was kind of like our deal. So, whatever works for kids. You could also tell them, this scholarship was only worth $500. But if it takes you 2 hours, you know what? You just made $250 an hour if you win it. So money really speaks to kids. And so kind of talking to them where they're at really helps. So that's kind of my angle. It's, whatever works for your kids, being open and honest, nothing hidden, and just letting them know that you're there with them through the whole process really helps motivate them.
All right. Great. So I guess, when I'm talking with families, I think for a lot of students, they don't really understand the price tags of college. If you talk to a typical 17-year-old and say, well, this college is $25,000 and this college is $50,000 and this college is $75,000, they're all big numbers bigger than they've ever seen or had in their hand, or, and there's really no difference between them in their mind. So if I graduate with $100,000 of debt or $10,000 worth of debt, they both seem about the same to most students, where they just don't understand the magnitude of the whole process.
Right.
And the other thing that I see is for a lot of kids, they're not that concerned about the money because parents haven't had that talk. Because in the past, if they wanted the iPhone at Christmas time, they got an iPhone. And in the past, if they wanted, this or that, or they wanted to go on vacation, then all that stuff was just kind of available to them because parents are doing, reasonably well and can afford that kind of stuff. And they're doing it. But it's a different, when you get to the higher ticket college, all of a sudden it's kind of a different attitude. But students don't realize it. It's like, there's not much difference. You can afford to give me an iPhone when I ask for it. Why can't you give me a college education when I ask for it?
Yeah, right. The money's coming from somewhere, right?
Exactly. And they don't understand the overall magnitude. And so again, for a kid that's always had the latest Xbox and the latest iPhone and that kind of stuff, because, as parents, we're always looking, well, we need a good gift again. It's Christmas time again. What are we going to get them? Oh, they want an Xbox. Okay, that's quick. That's easy. Let's just do it. I think that kind of lays the groundwork for some students that are a little naive about the whole college process. And so you need to spend some time educating them. All right, so let's say that we've started really applying and started winning the scholarships. Is there things that you need to do once you've won the scholarships?
This is a great question. It's really important. And I actually don't get asked this question a lot, but it is really important. Even just as little things like checking your email, because some organizations send an email to students saying, hey, you won the scholarship, but we need this information. We need the school you're going to. We need your student ID number or whatever the information they need in order to send the check right to the college, because most scholarship organizations or organizations that offer scholarship money send the money right to the school. So if you don't follow up and, number one, accept the scholarship, and number two, give them the information they need to get that check to the college, you might have just lost out on thousands of dollars. So I remember doing for one of my kids is I would call the financial aid office and just make sure that those scholarships have shown up. You also need to claim the scholarships. You tell the school, hey, he won this scholarship, this money should be coming. Then just keep double checking to make sure that that money does get into their tuition account.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that just following up and tracking the money. Again, on the financial side, if you happen to have more scholarships than you have tuition bill, which is a good place to be, and I've had a few, helped a few families along that way. Technically, scholarships will be taxable if it's more than tuition. That's the bad news. The good news is most students don't have other income, so although they have to fill out a tax return, they end up not paying a whole lot of tax because they don't have much income. So, once they take their standard deduction and a few things, they don't pay taxes.
Right.
At least not much. But you need to do the paperwork and do it properly. All right. Well, I think that's a lot of great information. If people want to learn more about what you have going on, I know you mentioned you've got some ebooks and you're doing some Twitter chats and a blog and all kinds of great information out there. So how do people get more information about what you have going on if they wanted to follow up with you?
Yeah, people can visit my website. It's winsscholarships.com. I have a very active blog. A couple times a week, I share scholarship tips. I highlight certain scholarships with winning tips on ways to make your application stand out. My Twitter chat, like I mentioned, is the first Wednesday of the month, usually, unless there's a schedule conflict, then we switch around with the hashtag called Campus Chat. My scholarship guides are also available on Amazon.com. And if you just type on your computer Monica Mathews scholarships, you can find me. I've done it for myself, which kids, Google yourselves because you never know what's out there. There's another tip right there. Make sure that your social media presence is clean. Really, really important. I won't get into that now, but scholarship judges and college admissions officers do check social media to check out kids before making decisions. But they can just find me by just Googling me.
Okay. And then I guess you mentioned something called a Twitter chat. And I'm going to assume that at least some of my parents out there don't really understand what a Twitter chat is. Can you explain what that is?
Oh, sure. Twitter.com is free. So you can just go there and create an account. Students, give yourself a nice clean name, first and last name, or just something very plain and ordinary, nothing crazy. And then what you do is you type in the hashtag, which is the number symbol, and say this one would be Campus Chat, and then into your search bar and click enter. And you're going to see all the tweets, all the different things people are saying about that Twitter chat. And it's every Wednesday at 9 p.m. There's all kinds of college topics. And so you can join those Twitter chats at that time. Make sure you're on the, whatever it is for your time zone. And either just read them all or you can ask questions. As long as you have that hashtag in your tweet, then everybody who is on that chat will be able to see your questions and answer you. So Twitter is like it's an unbelievable place for parents and students to find resources for scholarships and for college. But like I said before, you need to keep what you say clean because it's also a place I see students all the time tweeting out how much they hate this or that and how this is horrible and how whatever. But just keep it positive and clean and use the resource. And you can just type in scholarships, hit enter, and find all kinds of different things talking about scholarships. So it's another great resource.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for the tip. And how about two more tips that you might be able to come up with, and we'll wrap things up.
Okay, another tip that I really think is really important is don't assume your family makes too much money to win scholarships. I remember reading the small print once, trying to figure out if we could apply for this one scholarship. And it said, low-income students will be considered with incomes $100,000 or less. And I'm thinking, wow, because to me, $100,000 is a lot of money. And we did make less than that, and we could apply. So, some people just assume, we make too much money for scholarships. We just will never get any money. The same with filling out your federal forms, the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. Always fill it out, no matter how much. If you make $1 million a year, still fill it out. Because you know what? Sometimes a low-income loan is better for your student than going outside and getting private loans. So if that's all you're going to get, fine, but you never know. So don't assume with scholarships that you won't win. Don't assume you can't apply. Start where you are and just keep applying. So that's another tip. So is that two? Is there one more?
Yeah, one more. If you've got another one, we'll take it.
Okay, I was reiterating work together. Work together with your student. I've heard from parents over and over how this method has really helped. My scholarship guide outlines exactly what parents can do. Very, very minute details that set your scholarship applications apart. Reassure your kids you're there for them, because you know what? When the kids win scholarship money, parents win, because you don't have to pay that much tuition. So that's my last tip.
All right, great. Well, we had a lot of great information. I appreciate you being part of the podcast, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, that was a lot of great information from Monica. As a reminder, again, if you go to our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege/43, we have show notes with all the links and information that we've discussed in this episode. In addition, you have the opportunity to provide us your email, and we can send out the document, again, the great tips to motivate your kids to apply for scholarships. So that is available as well. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please feel free to contact us at Taming the High Cost of College website. There's ways you can send us an email, or you can also send us a voicemail by clicking on the orange button on the side of the website. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.